So today we are going to talk about midbrain, right? So let's start with the very basic concept. You must be already knowing that this is, I'm drawing the central nervous system and brain stem is the structure highlighted in this diagram here. Is that right?
Yes.
Of course, you know that this component, what is this? Medulla, very good. And what is this? Pons. And this is midbrain. This structure is midbrain. Is that right? Today we are going to discuss into detail midbrain, right? That what are the cranial nerves related with it and what are the internal structure of the midbrain, right? First, we will look at the midbrain from the front, then from the side, and then I will draw a diagram and we'll look at from the back, right? So let's look the midbrain from the front. If you look from the front, this is cerebral hemispheres, right? Yes, pons and medulla. Now, here, the midbrain is this structure. From the front, midbrain looks like this. What I mean by this, that it looks, there is a small elevation on the right side and left side, and this is longitudinal, right? And these small elevations, right, having a, what is this? Interpeduncular fossa. What is this? Interpeduncular fossa. If I bring it out, midbrain from the front will look like this. I've made the section of the midbrain at the top, and yes, this structure and this structure. Now you have to tell me, and of course then here is pons. And this structure, I'm just changing the diagram a little. Yes, this structure, this column, it's like a longitudinal column. What is this column called? Yes, please. What is this column called? This is the front of the midbrain. It's a longitudinal columns. There are two columns, right and the left. What are these columns called? Yes, please. Anyone? These are called Crus Cerebri. What are these? Crus Cerebri, right? And this is from the front. So we say that when we look midbrain from the front, we can look right and left Crus Cerebri. Is that right? And in between them, there is a little bit depression. Is that right? We call it interpeduncular fossa. Now, midbrain, if we look from the back, how it looks. If we are looking to the midbrain from the posterior aspect. Now I'm going to draw the back of the midbrain. Now, the back of the midbrain, this is the back of the pons and this is back of medulla, right? On the back of the midbrain, actually what we really see, there are four swellings. There are four swellings on the back of the midbrain, right? There are two swellings at upper level of the midbrain, back of the midbrain, and two swellings at the lower level of the back of the midbrain. These swellings are called colliculi. What are these swellings called? Colliculi. So on the back of the midbrain, there are four swellings. These are called colliculi. These two swellings are superiorly located, so they are called superior colliculi. And these two swellings are situated inferiorly on the back of the midbrain, so we call them inferior colliculi. So we can say on the back of the midbrain, right, when you look on the posterior aspect of the midbrain, you have 2 superior colliculi and 2 inferior colliculi. Now I'm going to see who is really intelligent. What is the special function of the superior colliculi and what are the special functions of inferior colliculi? Yes. Superior are related with the visual system. Very good. And inferior are related with the hearing. Right? This is the front of midbrain. I will compare midbrain from the different angles. Here I will draw the midbrain from the side. Here is midbrain drawn from the side. And here is the midbrain from the, yes, back. Is that right? Midbrain from the front, midbrain from the side. I think it's looking a little bit sexy. Yeah, was it not? Okay, it's a little bit from the side, midbrain. Yes. Can you see it now? What is the structure? Can you recognize it? Midbrain, pons, medulla. This is frontal view and this is the side view. So in this diagram we can see from the front and from the right side as if I'm standing like this and you're looking at my brainstem. Now we'll recap our, in the front we said this is cerebral. Okay, these are crus cerebri. So these are crus cerebri. On the back we said there are colliculi. This was superior colliculus, inferior colliculus, inferior colliculus, and what should be here? Superior colliculus and inferior colliculus. Is that right? No problem. Now another thing. If we draw a section, this is the left half of the midbrain and here is the right half of the midbrain. You are getting it if I draw it like this. This is left half of the midbrain. This is the right half of the midbrain. When we talk about the whole this midbrain structure, we can say this whole structure of the midbrain is connecting the brainstem with the upper part of the central nervous system or with the cerebral hemispheres. Because above this there are cerebral hemispheres. Now, because these structures, right, whole of it, all this green structure on one side and this is from the other side. This is connecting the brainstem with the cerebral hemisphere. So they are called cerebral peduncles. What are they called? Cerebral peduncles. Now don't confuse cerebral peduncles with cerebral peduncles. What are cerebral peduncles? Cerebral peduncles are the connections between the midbrain and, cerebral peduncles are the connection between the brainstem and cerebellum. Is that right? So, now I will make a different diagram to make it more clear. Let's suppose here is the midbrain. Is that right? And here is your pons, isn't it? And here is medulla. And here is your friend. Who is this here? Cerebellum. Now look, don't confuse cerebral peduncle with cerebral peduncle. This is cerebral peduncle, which one? Inferior. What is this? Middle. And what is this? Superior cerebral peduncle. And itself, midbrain, one half this and other half this. These are what? Cerebral peduncles. Is that right? So when someone say, what are cerebral peduncles? You say midbrain has two cerebral peduncle, right cerebral peduncle and left cerebral peduncle. But one cerebral peduncle, it means, is extending from here up to here. And other midbrain cerebral peduncle is extending from here to here. Any confusion into this concept? No. Now, this midbrain itself is further divided into structures. How? I will explain further internal structure of midbrain. What were these? Crus cerebri. The very important landmark within the midbrain is that here are very special type of structures who can tell me what are these structures? This is a substance, and this substance looks which colored? Black. So substantia nigra. Substantia nigra. So in midbrain, here is a structure called substantia nigra. Secondly, here is a very important structure. There's CSF filled, what is this? Cavity. Right? Let me explain this CSF filled cavity in relation to the whole structure. Look, now look very carefully. You remember which canal is here? What is this canal? Central canal of the spinal cord. Then here it expands, and what is it? Fourth ventricle. And this fourth ventricle, yes, now look here very carefully. What was the central canal? Here is the swelling, CSF filled swelling is fourth ventricle, and then this, what is this CSF filled tube which is passing through the midbrain? Cerebral aqueduct. So aqueduct. So what we say that within the cavity of the midbrain is cerebral aqueduct. Cavity of the pons is upper part of fourth ventricle. Cavity of the medulla is lower part of fourth ventricle. Cavity of the spinal cord is central canal. And above the midbrain, there is a structure which I will discuss later, that is called diencephalon. I will discuss later with you the structures which are above the midbrain. They are called diencephalon, and diencephalon has a cavity, and that cavity is called, this is CSF filled cavity here. And now, this was fourth ventricle. Fourth ventricle is connected through the cerebral aqueduct with another CSF filled cavity. What is this CSF filled cavity? Third ventricle. What is it? Third ventricle. Is that right? And so we can say midbrain cavity is the cerebral aqueduct. Cerebral aqueduct inferiorly connected with the fourth ventricle, superiorly connected with the third ventricle. Is that right? Any problem into this? So in this diagram, what is this CSF filled cavity? Cerebral aqueduct. And in this diagram, cerebral aqueduct should be here, isn't it? And if this is from the back, cerebral aqueduct should be here. Am I clear? Now, I have drawn two important landmarks. Number one, I have drawn, what is this? Substantia nigra. Number two, I have drawn in this diagram cerebral aqueduct. Now, structures which are anterior to the, what is this? Substantia nigra. This is called crus cerebri. What is it? Crus cerebri. Is it right? So this column was crus cerebri, right? And then structures which are posterior to the, what is this? cerebral aqueduct. The structures which are posterior to the cerebral aqueduct. These are called, just please, tectum. Tectum. And remaining structure between the crus cerebri and the tectum, they are all called tegmentum. What are they called? Tegmentum. Yeah, tegmentum is present in the pons also. So, what is this? Tegmentum. So, this structure is tegmentum. So, we can say in the midbrain there is crus cerebri, right? Then there is tegmentum and there is tectum. There are three parts of the midbrain. Now, the boundary between the crus cerebri and tegmentum is substantia nigra, and boundary between the tegmentum and tectum is cerebral aqueduct. This part, which is in front of substantia nigra, which is called crus cerebri, this is also called base. You know, remember in the pons there was a base and there was tegmentum. In the same way, there is a base and there is a tegmentum. Let's recap a little. In the pons, there was base here, you remember? And there was tegmentum here. Tegmentum. In the same way, midbrain, as there was, pons was having a base, which was the most interior part of the pons. The most interior part of the midbrain is also base, right? But it is also making crus cerebri. Then, behind the base or posterior to the base, in the pons there was tegmentum, and in the midbrain also, behind the base there is tegmentum, right? Tegmentum extends from substantia nigra up to the cerebral aqueduct, and behind that there is tectum. Is that right? Now, this was one view. This is other view. Now, you will tell me the structures here. Which structure I am drawing here? Substantia nigra. And what is this now I am drawing? Crus cerebri, which is vertically looking like this, and actually in the section it is the base. Very good. And what is present over here? Tegmentum. And what is present over here? Tectum. So these three terms will not be confused? Right. Now, all of it, this half up to this, what is it? Cerebral peduncle. Not cerebral, cerebral peduncle. So cerebral peduncle is, there is right half of the midbrain is right cerebral peduncle, left half of the midbrain is left cerebral peduncle, and cerebral peduncle consists of crus cerebri or the base of midbrain, crus cerebri, then there is tegmentum, and then there is tectum. Any confusion in these terms? There is no confusion. That's good. Now, this is view from the back. This view from the back, again, whenever you think of midbrain, always first of all draw substantia nigra. So, now this is the front and this is the back. Now, you people will tell me, what is it? Crus cerebri. Very good. And what is here? Yes? Tegmentum. And again, as a test, what is it? Tectum. So, from back to the front, yes? Tectum, tegmentum, base of the crus cerebri. And half of it is right cerebral peduncle, and this is left cerebral peduncle. And on the back, what you look? Superior colliculi and inferior colliculi. Right? Here is superior colliculi and inferior colliculi. Now, superior colliculi is concerned with visual reflexes. Superior colliculi are concerned with visual reflexes. So, how you can remember that? There are your beautiful eyes. Of course, there are not eyes on the back of the... I just want you to remember. Right? Superior colliculi, I've just made eyes so that you remember that this is basically concerned with the visual system. Superior colliculi are concerned with the visual system. And what was this? These are inferior colliculi. And inferior colliculi, they are concerned with, yes, they are concerned with ears. So I think this is a female inferior colliculus with some beautiful things there, right? So now by this diagram, you must be able to remember that inferior colliculi are concerned with which reflexes? Reflexes concerned with the hearing. Superior colliculi are concerned with the reflexes with the vision. If you really forget, then you have to remember eyes are little superior and ears are little inferior, right? Or you just say, here is the visual system, right? Reflex center, and here are auditory hearing system, reflex center, the audio. For example, when there's a bird which comes, let's suppose suddenly a bird comes, and you see and you do like this. What is this reflex? Visual spinal reflex. Is that right? And if you hear something, there's a car and you are just standing comfortably and in front of a car, suddenly someone boom, and you, what is that? Audio visual? Audio spinal reflex. Is that right? But these four colliculi are part of the tectum. They are the part of the tectum. So now I will draw another diagram to make some concepts clear. Superior colliculus, inferior colliculus, right? Now what really happens? Superior colliculus should be connected with which system? Visual system. Some visual connection should come to the superior colliculus. And inferior colliculus should be connected with what? Auditory system. Is that right? And both colliculi are present in the tectum. And from here, the fibers will come down. From superior colliculus, fibers will come down and inferior colliculus. You are understanding me? These are descending fiber or ascending fibers? Descending. Now, from these descending fibers, they will end up into lower motor neurons, and these are going to the muscles. Is that right? In the body. Now, why I have drawn this pathway? That these fibers are starting from the superior colliculus and inferior colliculus and going down, or they are starting from the tectum and going down, and then influencing the lower motor neurons going to the muscle. Actually, this pathway help you to mediate visual spinal reflex or auditory spinal reflex. Is that right? Or audio spinal reflex. Am I clear? Is that right? So now, actually, because this pathway is coming down from superior colliculus and inferior colliculus, and these are the part of the tectum, this pathway is also called tectospinal pathway. What is it called? Tectospinal pathway. So tectospinal tract or pathway, this is concerned with audio-visual spinal reflexes. Am I clear? Any problem up to this? There is no problem? Okay, now I would like to go into detailed structure of the midbrain, internal structure. If we are going to study the structure of midbrain, I will make two sections. One section at the level of inferior colliculus, another section at the level of superior colliculus. Or one section will be like this, and other section will be at upper level. Or one section superior colliculus level from the back, and this is inferior colliculus level. So we are going to study the midbrain now at two levels, that is at the level of inferior colliculus and at the level of superior colliculus. And naturally, again, these are the colliculi, superior and this is inferior. So when I will make a section here, what is section level? Inferior colliculus. And where it is? Superior colliculus. Now we'll go into detail of that. So what are the structures which are present in the midbrain? Any question up to this? There's no? Now, I will draw a section here. It is inferior colliculus. Then just under it there should be pons, isn't it? And of course you understand here is pons, isn't it? These are crus cerebri, right? And this is the section of the midbrain at the level of inferior colliculus, lower section. Now we'll draw the structures. Now you know the principle when we study the midbrain. The first principle is which structure should be drawn? Very important. Substantia nigra. Now substantia nigra is here. Now there are substantia nigra. In front of that there is crus cerebri and behind that there is tegmentum, isn't it? Now substantia nigra itself has two parts. In the posterior part of it, neurons are very tightly packed and there are dark colored area, very dark colored. In the posterior part of the substantia nigra or nigra. Now, this is called which part of the substantia nigra? Pars compacta. Compacta. And here, this is also black area, but this is part of the substantia nigra, but neurons are not so tightly packed here. So this is called pars reticularis. Reticularis, but both of them together are called substantia nigra. Now, substantia nigra is a very important structure concerned with the motor system. Is that right? And if this is damaged, right, a disease result which is called Parkinson's disease, right? Let me make a daughter diagram here. This is midbrain, pons, medulla. Now in the midbrain, if we are seeing from the side, substantia nigra is like this. You are understanding me? This is the substantia nigra in the midbrain. It is present at lower section as well as at upper section. It will be visualized in the inferior colliculus section as well as substantia nigra will be present in superior colliculus section. Actually, it is connected above, very important relationship with the basal ganglia. Basal ganglia I will draw here striatum. Okay, I'll just write down caudate and what is the other one here? With the caudate, putamen. Putamen. Right now, actually, a very important thing which you have to remember is substantia nigra has special neurons which are connected from here up to caudate and putamen, right? These neurons release dopamine here, right? These are called dopaminergic pathway. What is this? Dopaminergic pathway. Now, this dopaminergic pathway is extending from the substantia nigra up to the caudate and putamen. Caudate and putamen as a group are called striatum. What are they called? Striatum. Striatum. This will study later. Now, so due to this reason, this dopaminergic pathway is called nigrostriatal pathway. What is it? Nigrostriatal pathway. I will not discuss every pathway into detail, but this is extremely important because if with old age, in some people, this pathway degenerates. Nigrostriatal pathway degenerates. When nigrostriatal pathway degenerate, there is deficiency of dopaminergic activity in the striatum. And that result into a disease called, yes, Parkinson's disease. Parkinson's disease, right? Parkinson's disease, in which person develops difficulty in initiating movement. When you have a difficulty in initiating movement, we say there is hypokinesia. When there is difficulty in initiating movement, we say there is hypokinesia, number one. Number two, these people have rigidity, special type of rigidity, and with that they have tremors. So these three, Parkinson's disease has these components. Number one, there is hypokinesia, difficulty in starting the movement. Number two, there is rigidity, right? The limbs become rigid, muscles, right? And another is tremors with loss of postural reflexes. For example, I have a certain posture, and if you throw me back, I will do like this. But this person, he doesn't have those reflexes. If you throw him back, he will fall like a pole. You are understanding? Right?